Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to welcome Joseph Kahn, the executive editor of the New York Times, to our stage. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an eventful week.
It has.
I'm sure all of you know, but Donald Trump sued the New York Times for $15 billion. Legal experts say that this lawsuit is frivolous and meritless. I just want your gut reaction to it.
Well, he's wrong on the facts. He's wrong on the law. And we'll fight it, and we'll win.
So that's a great answer. In terms of we'll fight it and we'll win, do you feel confident that the Times is all aligned around that strategy of we're going to fight it and win? Could you see the Times ever being in a position where it would settle?
No.
And what do you think that's going to look like? And I ask because, we had Daisy, the CEO of the AP, here before, and they're in this very lengthy legal battle. They don't, probably won't go to court if it does till maybe January or next year.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to be in this for how long?
It's a different kind of legal battle that AP is going through. That's a battle about whether or not they have the right, to access within the White House, which we've supported AP in that fight. I think that's very different from being sued for libel by the President of the United States, for which I think there is no settlement. I don't think the President of the United States should be suing media organizations for libel, full stop. I think that's wrong. But I especially think it's wrong when he's wrong on the facts, when he's wrong about the story, when he misunderstands the protections that the law offers to media organizations under the Supreme Court's interpretation of libel law. And I think it's incumbent on us to fight that to the end.
The New York Times is so well positioned to fight that. Such, success commercially allows you to have the legal resources. When you think about what precedent it sets if you fight and you win, do you think that helps, maybe smaller outlets possibly dodge these types of efforts by the president?
I hope so. And I think also that it is true that smaller outlets, at a minimum, have to have the resources to be able to defend themselves over a lengthy court process, and some of them don't, and that's a real challenge. We do, and we're lucky in that sense, so I hope that further establishing this legal precedent will be of some help.
I think about when you first took over for this role, and one of the things I didn't expect was that underneath you, the Times is going to be shifting to be so multimedia. When I think about Joe Kahn, I think about the, international China expert editor. I didn't recognize that you had that focus. Is that an accurate portrayal of what your priorities are? Like, what is the news report supposed to look like under you?
We have I'm very lucky to have, a much larger and much more capable newsroom in terms of skill sets than really any of my predecessors had. And we have, an enormously capable sort of visual teams, graphics. We're building up our video team. And I do think one of the distinguishing characteristics, one of my top priorities, is to build out this promise of a true multimedia news organization that will tell stories in the forms that people want them. If you like to listen, if you like to watch, we will give you a full journalistic experience in those forms. Sometimes we'll mix those forms. If you look, actually, we've had an app for decades, I guess, a couple of decades anyway. If you look at the New York Times app today, it looks nothing like it did even a couple of years ago. It is a showcase for digital media in its best form. We're rolling out now a watch experience where if you prefer to watch TikTok style, but with really good journalism to watch, you can do that inside the New York Times app. If you want to play a game after you read the top stories, Games is right there. It's sort of building out that app experience as the ultimate destination in digital journalism is a big priority.
There's always been a tension at the Times, but in other newsrooms as well, between how do you build out these multimedia experiences, which often rely on personalities, without betraying the brand? How do you think about the balance between talent and brand?
It's something we think about a lot. If we have some top talent at the New York Times, as you know, and we are eager to showcase some of our best and most expert journalists, and in our opinion operation, which is parallel to the newsroom, we have a lot of top talent as well. They have to be committed to the journalistic mission of the brand, or it would not be a good fit. And I think the people we have are committed to that mission, which is a mission of fairness. It's a mission of transparency. It's a mission of doing journalism that matters. If you're only about yourself or promoting your own brand, you wouldn't be a good fit for us.
I think about a few years ago, there was so much tension culturally within the Times. I think about when Barry Weiss exited and the opinion editor leaving, and it just feels like the New York Times is in a much more settled type of place. What do you credit for that?
Mainly, we have 2,000 plus journalists, and I really believe that they are at the New York Times to do the best work of their lives, to do the best journalistic work of their lives. I mean, there are always moments where people in any big organization become inward focused for a time, but we are essentially, as an organization, our work is focused out there on the world. What kind of stories are telling? Are we breaking big stories? Are we getting attention for the journalism that we're doing? And in a moment like this, where the country is changing, where we're going through very quick, rapid-fire disruption in so many different areas, what I see is my colleagues just focused on the stories that they're telling, and increasingly on the collaboration with each other that it takes to tell those stories in a more multimedia form. This is not the one person does one article newspaper journalism of 20 years ago. This is very often teamwork, and when people work on teams and they're focused on breaking a big story, that tends to kind of be the centerpiece of what people are thinking about. I'm lucky to have that.
When we think about the role that the Times plays, it's often the agenda setter. That role has been challenged a lot with some of these hyper-partisan stories. I think about the Israel-Gaza war. I think about what's happening in politics right now. I think the Times has shifted its strategy, at least from what I see, in that it's much more aggressively defending its editorial calls than it ever has before. Is that a priority of yours?
It is, yeah. I think we have evolved from the days where I think we often felt like we produce journalism, and the journalism, for the most part, should speak for itself. People consume it, they read it, they should, if we did a lot of rhetoric around the journalism, it could undermine, the core product that we're producing. We've shifted some on that. We believe that in this era of, as you described, hyperpolarization, where you have people coming at you from multiple angles and multiple sides and trying to kind of tear down the institution, we have to do a better job of opening up our process, explaining what we're doing and why we're doing it, showcasing the expertise of the journalists who are involved in that work, how we put things together, how things get edited. And so we actually have a new position on my leadership team, Pat Healy, who's a very experienced journalist whose core job is essentially being reader-facing and helping to do that explanatory work, not just defend things, but also in a more proactive way, engage a larger audience in how we do, what we do, why we do it.
I definitely see the visibility, a lot more tweets going out, explaining things, pushing back. One of the stories that I think the Times tends to get a lot of feedback or criticism on, fair or not, is the Israel-Gaza coverage and lens. Like, what is your response to folks who think that the Times, is not necessarily taking the same position that mainstream media used to take towards Israel?
Yeah, I don't think we, quote unquote, I would not describe us as taking a position toward Israel. The Israel-Gaza conflict is a horrendous conflict, and we have some of the best reporters in Israel, and then we have a series of really brave reporters and photojournalists who are working out of Gaza, and we're doing our best to tell the story from multiple angles. We have broken stories about Hamas's underground tunnels. We've broken stories about the brutal tactics that Hamas uses to maintain power in Gaza, even under the Israeli assault. We've also had a lot of accountability journalism about the way Israel is conducting the war, the shortage of food in Gaza, the use of 2,000-pound bombs, which are very large explosive devices to go after members of Hamas with a lot of collateral casualties. So we have accountability journalism on both sides of that, and I think we've also tried to do deeply empathetic human journalism on both sides of the conflict. What people in Gaza are going through as they're displaced, the malnutrition problem, but then on the Israel side, the families of hostages who have been missing, the experience of people who have been pulled out of their jobs and put into the military, in order to fight this very long war. So I am really proud of the journalism that we've been able to do. It doesn't always satisfy, it doesn't usually satisfy the partisans, but we're deeply committed to just doing good, impactful journalism from a variety of angles in that conflict.
And speaking about journalism around that conflict, broadly speaking, the New York Times has a large international subscriber footprint. As I mentioned before, you have specific experience and expertise in international. Would love to just get your take on the international strategy because, the Times sort of sunsetted part of its Spanish strategy. I think there is, from my point of view, it seems like there's an effort to go after, expats, English-speaking people. Is there ever going to be a bigger effort to more deeply embed in other places internationally and spring up international editions that service those places? What's the strategy?
Well, we have a huge amount of potential still in terms of both international coverage and the international audience for that coverage, primarily in English. We're still doing a lot of translation, and I do think that AI tools and other translation will allow us to reach even more people in other languages. I think that's a great area of growth. I'm a little disappointed by how effective AI is at translating what we do now without a lot of human intervention. So at the moment, we want to make sure that anything we produce in another language is up to the standards of what we're doing in English. It's not as good as people think it is yet. It's got a ton of potential, but I think it's got to get a little bit better before you can read the Times in any language, and get the same experience that you would in English. I hope I see that day.
One last thing. At Axios, we like to end on one fun thing sometimes for our interviews. This is a media conference. We have a lot of curious media reporters all over. Do you ever plan to replace the old Ben Smith media columnist job? What's the plan for that?
Yeah. How many people think we need more media punditry? I love Ben, and Ben is irreplaceable for exactly what Ben did. We've added a lot to our media team. I've really emphasized reporting, as in breaking stories and having expert reporters who know about the sectors within media that matter the most. Brooks Barnes, by the way, is on our media team, and he broke the story about the death of Robert Redford. So that kind of media reporting I will continue to invest in, and our media team's bigger than ever. I'm open-minded about whether we need another columnist. I think there's a lot of punditry that's out there in the world. It's not the very top of my priority list.
Joe Kahn,
Are you
thank you so
applying?
much. I love Axios and my job.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.